Hello ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another HYDRA AI Castover. Once again, I'm going to be looking at one of the maps that I made for the recent full toilet contest that closed relatively recently. So obviously, it's the third map. This is a 2v2v2, a three-way free-for-all, and it's going to be pretty crazy, pretty goofy, and I actually think it might even end up being quicker than our last one, which is saying something, because I believe the last one was sub 20 minutes. So we're going to see how that goes. One of the things that I'm very intrigued to see here is upgrades, because that is an area where the AI has struggled a little bit lately. I have not made any deliberate tweaks to the AI since the patch that launched sometime recently, but this will be the first time that we are seeing some of the tweaks come in that essentially fix some issues, day 1 and day 2 issues that were discovered by testers like Folka and Dark Metzen Kian. I don't even know what username that guy goes by now, I'll just call him Kian. And some other people who reported some issues as well. Obviously some stuff that I found while testing and while attempting to play Fraud Night, which turned into Desync Night. So I guess a brief update on desyncs. They are still indeed happening quite commonly. The issue seems to be related to something to the units.dat extender. It's not actually a full units.dat extender that we have. We just have enough to extend certain aspects of it. And we can't figure out exactly what specifically of that whole system is desyncing people, but we've narrowed it down and we have a very reproducible case where all I have to do is scout a photon cannon and then lose vision of it, and that will desync the game. So since we have such an easy thing to reproduce the issue with, it's been somewhat reasonable in terms of like actually testing what actually does affect it and what doesn't affect it, because it's something you can do within 5 seconds of starting a multiplayer game. It is still ridiculous that we can't actually have any debugging for that, any sort of information as to what exactly is desyncing. So we're going to look into both a short-term solution of figuring out what exactly is wrong with this specific function, this specific system, and also hopefully a more longer-term solution as long as we're within Brood War, where we'll find some way to dump information related to the game state, essentially like printing out all of the information, and then finding some way to determine, like, okay, here's the player who dropped, and here's what's different in their version of the game as opposed to what's in the other version. I suspect there's just something that was done improperly on the extension side, and that's, sending out a bunch of garbage data, basically, because it isn't like one player will drop, and it's only the player who's got the photon cannon vision lost drops. It's like every single player in the game drops from each other, basically, or at least for the most part. So it tells me that it's like, more likely it's just like some corrupted thing happening, which certainly would potentially cause desync. So we're going to figure that out over time, ideally before the end of this week, so that we can actually have a functioning multiplayer night. But we shall see. It's still early days for this particular patch. And yeah, I definitely want to jump into talking about like my whole thoughts on whether or not we're going to be able to escape the beta nomenclature. I'll probably save that for a DEDCA or something, but suffice it to say, I do think that a version like what we're playing right now, like what we're about to jump into right now, some version like that will be the point where the game state itself exits beta, where the EXE can be considered no longer in the beta. And obviously that's something that I would really like to do. So I also want to produce some more content for this. Obviously, a lot of people who are interested in this are specifically interested in the single-player content and not necessarily as much into the whole multiplayer thing. Like, even if they're interested in large-scale team games, they might not be interested in playing with other humans, which is something that, or maybe they're only interested in playing like with a specific group of friends, and maybe those friends don't like Starcraft or whatever. There's been a lot of different cases where people have told me what they're interested in. I myself am super interested in single-player content. I think that there's a lot that you can get out of it, even if it is going to be a large-scale thing. But obviously, we've been mostly focusing on the game state, the mod design, as opposed to any maps. And so once the mod design is just a little bit further along than it currently is right now, I do think that with the game state in a position something like what we're seeing, it'll be really easy for me to start pivoting to content production for this game state to be experienced in a wide variety of different situations and scenarios. So those are the announcements out of the way, the sort of intro, the primer. Let's get into the game itself. This is going to be a relatively small map, a relatively compact map, so check it out. Dad's Plunger, map number 3. I have a wave emoji. DF did that. You can thank him. I don't know why it's broken over there, but I don't even know if that's possible to fix. Maybe he'll see it and fix it before I even have a chance to tell him about it. Alright, so the Ahmed player has spawned in as Protoss. Remember that the player 1 is random. So last time when I did a test to make sure that my audio settings and everything were together, this player was Terran, and they went for a mech build and died relatively early on. Protoss is certainly still the most powerful AI race in general, so we should see a bit more of a fight from the home team here. So the other part of that home team is, of course, Raphael over here, the plumber. Almost called him the plunger, which would have been funny. So he's going to be doing his patented, like, racks into some mech push stuff that he likes to do. Now on the other side, we've got HYDRA Commander, the patented air builder, is going to be doing his thing after he spins his SCVs sufficiently. There is a rare variance issue where in this particular in this particular map, at least when I was testing it with the actual official AI, keep in mind, we're not running the AI that like corrects the town center placements, so they will probably expand in asinine fashions. That's really the only difference between this AI and the AI that was present in the full toilet experience. So something to keep in mind, I guess. But ultimately, this is a situation where he would sometimes break, and basically, like, he'd build the refinery, but he would refuse to harvest any gas, and he would just build infinite Marines. I don't think that's something that can even happen in the default HYDRA thing. I think that was 100% something specific to the experience of the map crap, and, you know, the AI took a crap on itself, basically. So it does appear to be harvesting gas this time around, so we should see a bit more fight out of HYDRA Commander. His buddy over here, the Enslaved, checking them out on Instagram with their first gas and their spawning pool already finished. Should be a pretty quick expansion over to here. We might see them take this one. There's a ground path to it that's not currently revealed by this Overlord. Another thing that we did do recently is lower the you can sort of see the staircase right over there. They lower the armor and survivability. Well, I think we raised the armor by 1, but we lowered their health by 50, and we significantly increased their movement speed. That will be something that I attenuate. I will be reducing their movement speed even lower than what it currently is, but that way it doesn't scale differently with tech level or whatever. Essentially, if you want it to move even faster and all that, then you need to upgrade them into Iroliths, and they will eventually also have transport by default as well, as opposed to having to wait for, you know, morphing it into a specific unit for that. At least that's the current plan. We do have a first Zergling attack, so before I even talk about the other team, I should remind you that these cross positions are allied with each other. So keep that in mind. We do have a gateway spammer. Looks like, yeah, it's going to be the Legion build over here. Iquare the Protoss on the top left, the red. He's allied with the dark green Zerg down here. They're a pretty cool color, and they've already got their second base operational. Meanwhile, there's a slower take on the second base for the good old top right player. Oh, for a second I thought that was the red zealot. I was really confused as to why he was just allowed to, like, walk past. But that's fine. It doesn't appear to have, you know, we don't appear to have, like, lost anybody in particular down here. No lasting damage dealt by those Zerglings that ran around. So yeah. Pretty straightforward stuff so far. And we do have an expansion, and it does appear to be working correctly. Oh, you know what? I think maybe what I actually did was I forgot to remove the code that handled the base layouts for this map, for the map crap stuff. And so because it waits for a specific death counter to be set in triggers, basically like a trigger switch or something, and that will never be the case in almost any map. And because it's the case here, we are going to see them actually be set up a bit more intelligently than initially expected. That will be something that gets removed eventually because we're running the current version that's publicly available for HYDRA and not any other version of the product, like the mapcraft version or whatever. So I was actually expecting it to be a little fucky here. We do indeed have this one zealot just rampaging through the base. AI do not know how to, like, make sure that they have stationed guards everywhere, at least currently in the melee AI. There's a lot of things that will improve overall with the AI. For example, we will be using Veek's new preprocessor. He's worked pretty hard on that, so we are going to see a little bit of that in action sometime soon. We haven't seen any cross top or cross bottom play where the two teams attack each other, like the Zerg player on the bottom right attacking the Terran player in the bottom left, or the Zerg player on the top right attacking the Protoss player in the top left. We do have some Marines over here, just 5 Marines coming in. Haven't stimmed yet. They haven't recognized any threats. That will change now. which will significantly ramp up their DPS and allow them to kill off a couple probes, perhaps. Does look like they will be, a couple of them will be giving chase here. This will be stopped in its tracks, though, and this, on the other hand, is not looking too hot. Marines ganged up on. Just a couple of Zerglings coming in here to sort of add fuel to the fire. And this attack from HYDRA should kill off Raphael because he doesn't know what he's doing. And obviously, now we got some Zerglings over here as well. On the other hand, not a whole lot of air defense for our homie over here. Dragoons are now available by default, so he will be able to defend himself at the very least. But it probably won't last too long. Meanwhile, this player has decided to roll on down with his Zealots and Legionnaires, pick apart this base over here. Not really a whole lot that this guy can do about that. He's only got Hydras at the moment. He has not set down spawning pool. He is setting down some more defenses. With any luck, he'll be able to set up some Sunkens, maybe insulate himself from losing his main in addition to his natural, but it will almost certainly result in a dead natural, just like this attack almost certainly will result in a dead Raphael, though he has expanded over here, so that might be a silver lining for him. Meanwhile, Observers now requiring the Forge. Also, Observers now called Witnesses because action verb names are stupid, and I will be eradicating them wherever possible. Not sure what to call the Lurker or Devourer yet, but, you know, taking fan suggestion. Probably just put the microphone to my stomach while I'm having some indigestion and figure out whatever the text-to-speech says, and that'll be the name. That's how I come up with my Zerg names. Not really, but, you know. Still no detection for these guys. I think the anti-grief cloaking mechanism that I put together probably is outdated now, and it's probably telling them to build like a robotics facility and an observatory or something, so I'll have to adjust that as time goes on. This is somewhat what I expected. I did expect a bit more of a fight from the central Protoss, and so far that is the case, because obviously we have them really doing a number on the bottom right Zerg player who's allied with HYDRA, which could, considering how Brown in the top right has not really been that heavily instigated against and aggressed against, that could result in a pretty big change. Let's see, we do have a robotics facility being built reactionarily, so yes, like I said earlier, that is 100% a goofball maneuver. That being said, 3 gateways and the rebuilt Principality means that he can swarm this guy with Zealots and Legionnaires if he so desires, given the situation. So the ground forces here, not as big of a threat as you might initially think. Meanwhile, Brown is trying to set up another expansion. A curious position for his third. I don't think he likes this because of the proximity to other structures. AI are pretty commonly stupid with that. They're also kind of low on the drone count in the main. Hopefully that gets resolved at some point soon. We do have a single Wraith over here. Out of energy, so it will be shot down eventually, but it'll distract some of these Dragoons, giving enough time for some of those melee skirmishers to be done a number on. Even more Cloaked Wraiths bothering our guy. Got some simulacrums now. They won't help too much, they deal explosive damage. That's okay. How's it going over here? We only have one Sunken Colony, we gotta make this one count. A couple of Orvelings are not going to help too much there because their DPS is lower than a Zergling. They're much better used when you've got enough Zerglings to like sort of essentially DPS while the Orvelings are taking fire. This is still quite a dangerous squad, and there's some more units being massed up over there. We do have a single red observer spying on our central hero here. Does look like that simulacrum will eventually put some of those Wraiths down. What they really need, if they're going to go for something out of the robotics, they need an automaton register and they need to go into idols. Idols have the AoE concussive. And bearing that in mind, that should result in a pretty nice victory for the central player, should he decide to go toe-to-toe with the Wraiths. I don't think that'll happen because this is a Gateway Templar personality, and the only reason they even built the robo facility is because I bugged something out and just forgot to update it. Meanwhile, we still have not cleaned up these 15 and 7 kill Zealots, respectively. This might have been a reinforcement attack, but somehow I just have a feeling that this is mostly just an embarrassment. Much like this graphic for the Ecclesiast. I definitely need to get a better graphic for that. A fleet of Wraiths approaches and should actually completely annihilate everything over here. By the way, whenever the Wraiths cloak, they get attack speed when attacking ground. This is a new passive behavior for them that at one point was an upgrade. I think that was even an upgrade as far back as the remastered Hydra, so if you're somebody who's an oldie, you remember that. That is something that you can remind yourself that exists. These Zealots have still not gone down, so, you know, they'll just continue to pad their stats. KDA players ecoing, of course. Decent amount of Zergling reinforcements slowly being pulled away over here. Really, he should just take everything. AI is hell of a drug. I'm wondering how his econ is, actually. He's got a lot of eggs going in some places, and then not a whole lot on others. He's got 7 hatcheries. Well, I guess 5 hatcheries and 2 layers. He's got a lot going on there. The Wraiths are continuing their assault. Pretty much nothing doing over here. Still hasn't put down the Machinist Hall, so he still thinks that he can't build Observers. We do have a single Vassal. That's pretty cool. Their attack sound is a little bit too deep, I think, for the tiny amount of damage it does. One of the things I'm also playing around with the idea of doing, I want to jump in and actually, like, cut down on some of the trails for some of the existing sound effects. For the most part, they're pretty good, but I think some of the explosion sound effects from, like, the Dragoon Impact and some stuff like that, probably a little bit too long-winded. So it would be nice to do a bit more there. It does look like this player is not going to be able to rebuff. Maybe this attack will eventually get cleared out, but I don't think the Brown Zerg player is going to be able to, you know, pull anything off there. This guy's completely out of money, which explains the lack of defenses, I guess. Doesn't explain the lack of preemptive sunken colonies, especially since he morphed a fucking spore colony of all things. Goofball. Meanwhile, our central player might be dying to Wraiths, but he's making sure that the other guy dies too. And at the same time, somehow, without even me being able to pay attention, Raphael decided to rebuild his stuff, but he's just going to get kissed. This might slow down enough for this now one mining base Zerg player to eventually, you know, get these guys out of here. The problem with building pool units against Ecclesiasts is that while the base damage for these units is quite high, maybe it should be swapped over to explosive or something so that it's a little bit less well-rounded. The passive for the Ecclesiast is that when it attacks a unit and that unit is killed, however many attacks that unit took, that number is multiplied by 5, and that's the number of shields that all nearby units get healed for, which is one of the reasons why you see all of these high kill units, despite the fact that Zerglings have definitely been attacking them. That being said, the Ecclesiast has now died, so it's a little bit easier. They're definitely more of a supportive infantry unit, and that's why their damage should definitely be pulled down a little bit. So with that said, it does appear that the powerhouses that we were seeing in action, the sort of like, if you conceptualize this map as a bit of a battle royale, and well, it's a free-for-all map, so if you imagine it's like there's a giant set of, number of enemies, and we figure out how many of those players are really fit to fight. It does appear to be squarely red versus white here. Nice architect. He's got some authorities. He's got a couple forges. His base layout is horrendous. Oh, he's got 3 authorities. He's got some reavers. He's got some shuttles. And he's got an architect. That means there's going to be some action here. Now, architects are unique in that their missile spreads to account for the number of units that are nearby the target. So they've got quite a decent amount of range, and then once the weapon is within 3 range, or 96 pixels, not that I don't think either of those are necessarily going to be useful for people, but a Hierophant has a little bit over 3 range. I think like an unupgraded Marine has 4? Obviously Marines just have it by default now, so it's not really unupgraded anymore. In fact, I'm kind of surprised that I don't see more idols. That would definitely... Oh, there's a couple over here. But yeah, so anyway. Something to keep in mind, I guess. Checking in with upgrades. We have nothing that has a weapon, so I can't see if they upgraded weapons, but kind of disappointing they're still at 0 Carapace. Over here, we did just finish +2 weapons and armor for the Protoss, although it still feels a little slow. Still on 1-1 over here, but he doesn't even have an Evo chamber, so I'm impressed that he's got that much. A couple more units trickling around over here. Wraiths causing some ruckus. Thought I saw a big Protoss force over here. They were running around in this area. They even interrupted the engineering bay. Looks like it's finally finished. That will allow UED Commander to finally ascend to Tier 2. So we should see some munitions bays going down for his add-ons, or for his starports, which will allow him to field some Wyverns and some Gorgons. So UED Commander's a real contender here. Don't let the don't let it be fooled. Don't let yourself be fooled. And actually, the longer this Zerg player survives, the more distracted the Protoss player will be. So yeah, forget about what I said. We're about to cross that 20-minute mark. I mean, some part of it was my my speech at the beginning, but you know, we're at 15 minutes in. We got a fleet of wraiths, no upgrades, of course. Classic. Does he even have an armory? He's got a ton of starports, but no armory. There's the first munitions bay, presumably of many. That means that they'll get access to Gorgons, Wyverns, and Valkyries. Obviously, the latter of those three, not very important. There we go. The architects are out. You better watch out. If they ever get vision of these wraiths, they're almost certainly going to get destroyed because of the splash, or not the splash, the that dispersive salvo that I was talking about. Oh yeah, reminder, we do have a website now, fraudsclub.com/HYDRA. Link will be in the description. Check it out. It's got all the information. If you see a unit and you're like, oh, what does that unit do? And you at least know what the name is, or what its graphic looks like, you can go to the website, check out the tech trees. You'll be able to figure it out. All right, well, somehow those Protoss units managed to die. Wraiths are cleaning up the last of the ally over here. Oh yeah, when I saw those 3 zealots or those couple legionnaires from Red, I kind of assumed that Red was going to kill off this guy, but I forgot they're allies. Those cross positions definitely did a number. A lot of Marines and a lot of Wraiths spinning around over here. We should see some armories coming out sometime soon, because at least I would hope that this guy builds armories. Please. Please build some armories. Surely he'll build some armories. But he's getting his 4th base. That's actually more bases than the Protoss player has. Icor is setting up his 4th as well, though, so not that far behind. But another fleet of Wraiths has been descending upon these people. Oof! Gotta love it. It does get reduced. The damage is reduced per hit, but pretty incredible things. All the same. That does seem a little bit high, actually, since it's supposed to be explosive. And these are just the small units. I'll have to go and take a look and see if that's just busto. Maybe it's like anti-air ice script is a bit different than its anti-ground one. All the same, those are very, very expensive, like endgame tier units. So they are meant to be quite powerful. Just maybe not that powerful. I love how many squadrons of Wraiths I'm seeing out of this player. Even though it might not be very economically viable, it's pretty interesting to see him just have like fleets all over the place. Scramble the jets, bro. Alright, off they go. They've acquired another target. There's a wall of pylons being built over here. I'm not sure for what reason. I think he's just really desperate to expand his supply. And perhaps expand his production as well. Yeah. AI build orders, AI build spaces, rather. Space layouts. Bit goofy. But hey, we've actually got a 3rd hatchery and a 2nd hatchery just about finished over in this particular base area. The main is being set up once again. Minerals are being harvested at quite an alarming rate. We will see resaturation. We might even see a geyser over there sometime soon. Another squadron of Wraiths. You know, honestly, that might be the straw that breaks the camel's back here. There's a big upgrade advantage for the Protoss, but how long is it going to last them? That really depends on how long it takes UAD Commander to decide to build a fucking armory. This idiot will not build armories. He'll have a medic that heals nothing. I think that's a bug that I thought was fixed, but I don't even know how that got triggered that time. Oof. Gotta love him being lit up. The idol as well, something that almost certainly lights it up in a different manner as well. It looks like maybe their shadow is getting duplicated. I'm gonna have to look into that one. We're now up to +3. That does also affect Reavers, so you gotta keep that in mind. +3 weapons. I'm sure +3 armor is not far behind. We do have a spinning forge. Only one spinning forge, even though he's got like 60,000, so that's pretty interesting. When your dead Zerg ally comes back to the game, drops 6,000 hatcheries, and also still has more upgrades than you might be UAD Commander. Just saying. That being said, just the sheer number of air units should still result in like a decent amount of map control, but if he doesn't get upgrades, he's not going to be able to equalize. I did see a couple Gorgons now and then. Obviously, there's a couple of Wyverns sitting out here, not really being used for anything yet. They will be used eventually. Plenty of starports all over the place. I'm counting, you know, towards the double digits, if not in there, right? Because we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Yeah, he's up to the double digits. He might be dropping some more in his other base pretty soon. Still have some, you know, miscellaneous fights happening. A couple of Zerglings. I don't think they'll be doing too much there. Something tells me double Reaver will more than take care of that. But what is the play? There's about 10 million Zerglings. They're going for the double spawning pool, presumably because they want to evolve the triple spawning pool. Well, there's no reason for that. That's just them being goofballs. But they have ascended back to Overlord Iris Tech. They will be jumping on some lair opportunities pretty soon. They even have a third base set up, somewhat protected by Wraiths. The Zerg could turn into a powerhouse pretty quick with this number of hatcheries. You never want to underestimate the AI in HYDRA, even if they've pretty much died. I still would put my money on Iquare, just because he's got 4 bases now. You know, the 4th one isn't, you know, marvelously, what do you call it? Saturated, and his natural is also really inhibited in terms of efficacy, but he's just got such a dominating upgrade advantage. They haven't been able to pierce the shroud of the architects when they're sieging. The only downside is that they don't appear to be that interested in using the mech units in attacks besides the Reaver, and even when they are using the Reaver, they don't seem to be using shuttles to escort them or to expedite their travel. I'm not quite sure why that is. But they've got tier 3 armor and tier 3 weapons. Like, at this point, it doesn't look very likely to for these players to hold on to their hats, as it were. Maybe they can pick off some of these outer-lying bases before the architects end up getting defense shuffled over there, if they do. 26 kills. Maybe that Reaver paid for itself. I mean, it is probably just Zerglings, but the sheer number of Reavers over here means that at this point, Iquare would probably be able to just attack move with these Reavers and do a number on the Zerg here. Clarions are not set up to actually use their ability, so they're pretty much just wastes of gas. But the sheer number of them is pretty impressive. In fact, they might actually be trying to get out of their base, and maybe they're just blocked off in some ways. Like, obviously, the architects are ground units, right? So, gotta keep that in mind as well. I should probably have them hover, since they're supposed to be hovercraft. Big shout out to DF for not only helping in the export and sorting of these units. Iquare helped with the export, DF helped with the sorting. But Iquare was also able to come up with, DF was also able to export and render, re-render essentially the effects, the engines for a lot of these units. So that was really, really nice. We do have some air units on the field. First time in a while. Architects should still do quite a number on them, but if there's no architects nearby, it might not matter. The space could go up in flames. Mutalisks are not too interested yet. There are the architects. Ooh, man. Just look at all those missiles splitting. Since that is a sort of curious question, I am going to jump into the iScript at some point when maybe the action is back down again, or maybe if this just ends at some point, you never know. Because it does seem like they're launching more than one missile at a time when they're targeting air, which really does offset the power of mutaspams and wraith spams, and you have to wonder, like, oh, I wonder if that wasn't the case. I guess I'll just figure this out now. Let's jump into the Architect iScript off screen. Hey, check that out. They do launch indeed. Way too many. I don't know what possessed me to handle that one. Pretty epic. Alright, well, now we know. Architects are bugged. Iquare's a cheater? Iquare is cheating with architects. Check it out. Confirmed. This sheer number of missiles coming out. I think they attack 4 times. How many? Yeah, it looks like they launched 4 missiles. UED Commander built an armory somewhere. Where is it? Let me find it. It's probably at his expansion. Yes, he built an armory. It's not spinning now, but he built an armory. He has +1 at weapons. The Terrans might come back here, boys. They've got the base count to do it. They can expand again sometime soon. And curiously, AI can seem completely incapable of actually queuing up with large numbers of like upgrades for tier 4 and beyond. They seem completely incapable of it. I don't know why. We are seeing a huge number of mutas as well storm this base. Like this is Swarm right here, man. This is what we were promised when we set this player up, and he's up to 2-2 as well, so he will soon equalize with the the sheer number of Reavers is pretty epic. He will soon equalize with the Protoss upgrades. The question is if it's even going to matter given the sheer number of missiles that are getting shot off by the Architects. And even if they weren't there, at this point, the sheer number of vassals as well is quite overwhelming. There's so many units that are really, really good at handling anti-infantry, anti-light, anti-swarming. Like, just look at these units. Don't look too closely at some of them because those placeholder graphics are pretty placeholder, man. But even so, like, there's still pretty consistent armies being sent out now with these 3 bases that the Zerg player has. He's even started to set up this base as well, which means he's undoubtedly going to start adding even more hatcheries to his repertoire. And if he needs the gas, he has an access to a 4th geyser, which is pretty big for him. So I would not be surprised to see, you know, maybe a 5th or 6th base coming out of the Zerg sometime soon, as well as obviously just a metric fuck ton of units sweeping through and essentially stymieing any additional expansion attempts that HYDRA ends up making. Keep in mind, he's almost depleted in his natural. He's definitely depleted in his main. He's not really mining with that much force over here in the 3rd, or 4th, I guess that is. The 3rd is obviously under attack constantly, a lot of the times by air units that will deal incidental splash damage to the probes. So I got to keep that in mind as well. Here comes another big attack. Centered, it appears, on this bridge. They're probably just going to fly over and get annihilated by Architects. Just look at the fucking number of them. So generally, we're basically going to need ground units for the... we're going to need ground units to deal with the Architects if we're going to deal with them at all. There's quite a big attack force brewing over here from Red, but I think it might be a little too late to stop this madness. In fact, we may end up reaching a stalemate on behalf of all of the bugs. Oh, we are seeing some carnage over here as well, though. All the probes almost have just been completely eviscerated. Do we have a spinning armory? That armory is spinning, ladies and gentlemen. We do not have a 5th base yet for the Terrans. And we don't even really have a 5th base yet for the Zerg. So everybody's still on 4 bases at most. But the 4th just got shut down by all of these wraiths, finally. Even with the upgrade disadvantages... Oh, check that out. They actually are upgrading the tier 4. So maybe I'm wrong about that, and they finally figured it out. I've never seen them do that before, so that's pretty good. Imagine actually dealing 200 damage instead of 50 damage. Lunacy. So Amaranths gain shield steal based on their missing HP. So they basically, you want to kite those if you can. Especially the weaker they get, essentially the longer they can stay in the battle. I'm not really 100% sure what to make of some of this stuff. They appear to be decolliding or just ignoring the mutation pit collision. I don't think that's an issue with the collision. I'm pretty sure that's just something that gets fucked up when some data array somewhere. Probably related to something that I was talking about related to the desyncs. I'm pretty sure it has something to do with those. Still nothing on that armory. Still no conclusion. Looks like this attack has been reposted by the Zerg, who are not upgrading currently to tier 3. They are going to need to wait until they upgrade their Overlord Iris to an Irilith Quay for that. That being said, they do have the Calcath Bloom. If there's something we know very, very well around here, it's that Calcoleths are pretty fucking powerful. If we see some Calcoleth cocoons at some point, we will know that this AI might be eventually able to finally put these guys down to bed. Calcoleths are very, very powerful assault units, morphed from Nathracors. So we are going to have to wait and see. But I would really like to see tier 3 upgrades hitting sometime soon. And again, the sheer number of mutas doesn't even matter if these architects are going to be as broken as they are currently. But given the sort of stalemate-y nature of this map so far, I might end up... I think it's probably fair game to start speeding this stuff up. So. Not that much. There we go. See how we go. See how we do. This is akin to a replay guy hitting ×2 speed on this. Alright, we got some ground units here. Unfortunately, if they target air units and fire 4 shots, those shots can also split for ground units, so... And just the sheer presence of air units makes it so that their comp sucks. Well, rebuilding, though. Still no Irelith Quay, yeah. So they're still going to be stuck on tier 2, but they're able to remax very, very quickly off of these 4 bases. We are just going to have to keep waiting until we see some more action in that regard. Wyvern armor on, okay. And no spinning on that armory yet. And just off of 1 armory, really. That's where the hill they're going to die on. Still don't see a science facility either, so it's not even like he can be bailed out by the presence of high-tech tier, high-tier Terran units. Definitely something we would like to see. Again, the sheer number of units leads you to believe that surely they can do something. Oh, an architect might go down here. Oh, right, see ya. Yeah. I don't know why they're focused so heavily on those Reavers, but... Oh, hey, there's a strat. Medics blinding the architects. Turn their weapons of war against them. Let's see that happen a bit more often, huh? Icor is able to hold once again. He thinks this is a defense map for him. A couple more hatcheries, a little bit closer to the battlefield. Not a tactic intentionally. It's just probably from this base, and they can't find a spot to build it inside there, which is obviously by design. But AI doing it in a goofy way, because the AI must build on the same height level as its main town, unless you give it base layouts. So, like, unless I hard code some base layouts for the little base over here, we are going to see them essentially just spin. Yeah, between architects and reavers, I don't even know if it's possible. I don't know if it's even feasible to kill off these Protoss, especially since they're hitting up to tier 4 upgrades. Are their forges spinning even further? We do not currently have spinning forges. Okay, keep that in mind. That might prove to be pretty impactful. Kind of dangerous to see the architects moving up, but it doesn't appear that they'll be... See, if they were added to the attacks, Icor would just win automatically. But I don't actually know what he's doing for attacks. Seems to be spinning. Space still not being allowed to mine. Do have a pretty large attack force, mostly ground units now. Not that the AI would ever learn, of course, but a single Scourge might be the downfall. We'll see what happens. A couple mutas over here as well. Okay, go time. Yeah, something tells me maybe that's never going to happen, dude. Maybe that will never work. That's what I'm getting out of that experience. Still no Irelith Quay. Sad. Sad days. This might end up being a perpetual stalemate. We'll have to wait and see how it goes. I guess if nothing happens in the next couple minutes, by 40 minutes or 42 minutes, because that's the magic number. 42 minutes in game time, we'll call it quits. Because this is Castover in and of itself. You're kind of seeing how these behaviors work. Another thing that could end up working out is if these Wyverns ended up being added to the attacks, but it does seem like maybe the AI is told to build them, but not use them in attacks. Much like the AI failing to use these robotics units in it. See, the thing is, I know for a fact that that's not the case, because I wrote the code to make it so that they use them in attacks. Another giant attack force, once again, sat the fuck down by the million Reavers. The Reaver thing is really puzzling. I don't know why those are never used. Okay. And good night. You shall not pass this pylon wall. They can't do anything to him. He's tier 4, dude. Spinning armory? Nope, no spinning armory for tier 2. See you, nerd. Saving grace is that you can still damage buildings. That's pretty much it. This is like a slightly bugged power overwhelming or something. He has finally lost this base, which has the double gas, so that could be big right there, but it's probably not going to matter, let's be real. Could also investigate if there's a recursion on the idle shadow. I don't see anything promising happening. It's very, very slow gains at this point, and even if they end up shutting down that base, like, what's that going to really result in? He can barely get out of his base at this point. Okay, bye. I am surprised that this AI is not interested in expanding any further. Million Nathr cores. All dead now, of course. A couple of units are getting snuck out here in the middle of the battle. Pretty big phalanx over here. Okay. Ground units are the way to go against those architects, but good fucking luck. Blind almost kills the Reaver. Not quite. Oh yeah, it looks like they all died immediately. I wasn't even able to catch them all dying. Sad. Unless they shuffled somewhere? Which could have been the case, but I don't see. Poor guy staying on this tech level for so long against this fucking just an onslaught. All right, I think we'll cut it there. I don't see it working out for him. Oof. It's not happening. No matter how many times they deny the space, maybe eventually they do win, right? Because maybe eventually they drain HYDRA of money. What is this? Is this player 3? He does have no money, I guess. They have actually drained him, but he has so many units. So. I think we'll cut it there. Thanks for joining me. Shout out to what's his face? June 3 Hong did a lot of the wireframes that you saw when I was selecting stuff, like the updated layer wireframe. I think he did an updated Nexus one as well. There's a bunch of ones that he did for like the custom units and stuff. I think we still need a wireframe for the Scarab. That was something that I noticed when I was selecting some units earlier today. But yeah, that was the Castover. A bit of a longer one. Hope you enjoyed. Obviously, no real results, but we can just call UED Commander an idiot. The Zerg were surprisingly able to come back in some fashion, but they never got out of Tier 2. So we are still working on the kinks. Expect some more AI updates sometime soon. Some large-scale AI updates using Veek's preprocessor, which is going to be basically completely new techniques for AI. And check those out. Hey, look at this. He's Mike. There's a mic over here. I don't know what the fuck that is, but there's a mic over here. Some birds. Crows, you know? All right. Anyway, that's it for me. Bye.